An orthopedic surgeon and husband of The View co-host Sunny Hostin is accused in December lawsuit fraudulently billing insurance. By the way, this is a Daily Caller story I'm reading. The lawsuit alleges Hostin knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services in exchange for kickbacks and or compensation, and names him among nearly 200 defendants in one of New York's largest RICO cases. Wow. Hostin's attorney Daniel Twites denies the allegations, calling the lawsuit a meritless attempt by a near-bankrupt insurance carrier to intimidate doctors and restrict healthcare benefits. The case involves claims that Hostin performs unnecessary surgeries on patients after minor accidents without exploring less invasive treatments, with American Transit citing New York's 1974 no-fault law as contributing to widespread.
As The View scrambles to contain the fallout, Sunny Hostin finds herself at the center of a growing storm tied to her husband's alleged role in a staggering $450 million RICO case. Meanwhile, Patrick Bet-David and Joe Rogan aren't holding back. What follows is a sharp, sarcastic takedown packed with wit, tough commentary, and a healthy dose of irony as Bet-David methodically chips away at her public image, one podcast episode at a time. The criticism is relentless, the jokes land hard, and the whole spectacle is as entertaining as it is controversial.
With mostly everything that's been said, I mean, we know that, only about 31% of Americans trust our healthcare system. We have a terrible healthcare system. And, doctors suffer because of big corporations as well. Doctors that want to do good, like my husband, operates on someone even though they don't have insurance and then has to sue health insurance companies to get paid for the work that he's been trained his whole life.
Interesting, because I think Sunny is very intelligent, but she's ideologically captured.
Right.
So I think the other ones, there's a couple of the other ones, don't have to name any names, are just very dull-minded. But I think Sunny's not one of them. I think she's smart, but captured.
Sure, I think she came into it with an agenda.
Of course. They do everything with an agenda.
Her husband, once known for the kind of polished professionalism that screamed Harvard law and courtroom credibility, now finds himself linked to a staggering $450 million RICO case. And just like that, Sunny Hostin's image took a sharp turn, from respected legal analyst to a central figure in a controversy that's generating headlines everywhere. The allegations are so massive that some commentators are comparing the story to a real-life financial thriller. Before the news cycle even had time to settle, Patrick Bet-David and Joe Rogan jumped into the conversation. Neither one sat down with Sunny directly. They didn't debate her, call her out personally, or engage in a back and forth. Instead, they looked at the situation from a distance and offered their own blunt takes on what was unfolding. What followed was a mix of sharp criticism, sarcasm, and plenty of commentary. While their styles couldn't be more different, both seemed eager to weigh in on a story that was already capturing national attention.
You're married, Tom, you're married. If your husband's doing something, if he's allegedly doing something like this, you guys would know if your wives were up to some nefarious stuff. Let's just not forget who she is. She's been, for years, lecturing America about morality, inequality, systemic failures, and look at her track record. How many times has she had to go on in the past 2 months and look at the camera and do a legal apology for all the stuff that she said on the show? And then she also, on Trump's win, calling the loss because of uneducated white women that Trump won.
We have to know that. This is accused.
All accused. Yeah, all accused, but he's in the RICO. This is a big RICO case that her husband's in.
What do you even say about this? The man who built a career asking MMA fighters and comedians wildly unexpected questions suddenly found himself staring at a story too bizarre to ignore. Joe Rogan took his usual thoughtful but skeptical approach, and before long he had enough material for days of commentary. And comment he did, not with outrage, but with disbelief. Raised eyebrows, and the kind of amused grin you have while watching a raccoon somehow figure out how to open a cash register.
And frankly, that show, you want to talk about a show that set women back, is The View. You want to talk about that show, if the CIA is engineering, Antifa and fucking the Capitol riot, some crazy misogynist engineered The View, because there's nothing worse than The View. In terms of, there are so many brilliant women out there, none of them are on The View. None of them have gone near the set of The View. I mean, they have brought in the lowest tier of the, what is it, the Y chromosome?
No, double
X.
Okay. Double X.
They brought in the lowest of the double X's for that one.
For Rogan, the story wasn't about outrage. It was about irony. A public figure known for speaking about ethics and accountability suddenly found herself connected to a controversy that seemed to raise plenty of uncomfortable questions. Rogan approached it with disbelief and humor, treating it like one of those stories that feels too strange to be real. Patrick Bet-David took a different route. While Rogan focused on the absurdity, Patrick focused on the numbers. He dug into the reported $450 million figure, breaking down the scale of the allegations and asking how something that large could happen in the first place. To him, the situation already spoke for itself. No dramatic confrontation was needed. The sheer size and complexity of the story were enough to keep people talking.
It's always the people that always do the pointing, and it always comes back to them, all right? So when you said this is the largest RICO case ever filed in the state of New York, you guys wrap that around your brain. That's bigger than the mafia case. Like the mafia one was number one. This one takes it over. So he was scamming insurance companies from taxi drivers, Uber drivers, and Lyft drivers. He was performing unnecessary surgeries and then providing fraudulent medical services in exchange of...
For Rogan, the story was all about hypocrisy. A figure known for projecting moral certainty suddenly found herself linked to a controversy that seemed straight out of a financial crime drama. To him, it wasn't just surprising, it was the kind of situation so bizarre that you can't help but shake your head and laugh in disbelief. Rogan didn't come at it with anger. He simply pointed out the irony of someone publicly championing law and order while facing questions tied to such a massive scandal. Meanwhile, Patrick Bet-David took a more analytical approach. While Rogan supplied the humor, Patrick brought the numbers. He dug into the reported $450 million figure, breaking it down piece by piece and asking how an operation of that scale could even function. Looking at the allegations, he treated the story less like a typical scandal and more like a case study in ambition, complexity, and financial chaos. The bigger he made the picture, the more unbelievable the whole thing seemed.
Giuliani shook the tree and a bunch of mobsters fell out, right? This is big stuff. And so, and thank you for bringing that video. It sure is ironic that she's up there. So, but if she didn't really know what was going on, right, which is what she's probably going to say later, oh, I had no idea what my husband and his associates were doing. We'll wait and see what that is. But I think it's pretty freaking ironic.
Yeah. I have a totally different perspective on this. I don't really know what happened with this. The facts will come out. What I have a problem with is the core of who this woman is. Unlike you, I don't watch The View, bro. All I do is see clips.
It's just like twice a day.
Here's all I hear from her. America's violent. America's racist. America's bad. Okay. I challenge you, Sonny. And this is Konstantin Kisin actually was saying something about this. Find me a country that's not racist.
Patrick's breakdown somehow went viral on LinkedIn, the one place where everyone pretends to love hustle culture before sunrise. And oddly enough, people called it poetic justice, wrapped in irony and served extra crispy. The whole story starts to feel like it's collapsing under its own weight, tearing through every polished speech and moral high ground ever broadcast from a studio stage. It's not just the allegation itself, it's the way the image unravels in real time. Rogan reacts with quiet amusement, never over-explaining, just letting the absurdity speak for itself. His dry laughter becomes the background track to a carefully built public image slowly cracking under pressure. Then Patrick Bet-David steps in with numbers instead of noise. Calm, precise, and almost clinical, he breaks the situation down like a forensic accountant at a roast, showing just how messy the whole thing really looks.
Is that show has this very specific ideological bubble in which they operate in, you know, and they always bring on a token conservative woman and they yell over her and silence her, and you know they did that with Meghan McCain, and they did that with what is that other blonde woman from Survivor? Do you remember her, Jamie? She was always yelling. I mean, it's just it's a bizarre show. I think the way before you start, I think the way you described it is brilliant, and the way we should all look at it. Of course, you're going to see race. The idea of being colorblind is ridiculous, but treat everybody. They're just human beings. Yeah. Everybody's just individual.
You can almost picture spreadsheets running through Joe Rogan's mind as he connects the dots between expense reports and alleged offshore transfers, raising an eyebrow at how hundreds of thousands of dollars quietly ended up on an unsupervised trip to the Cayman Islands. His reaction isn't outrage, it's a dry, almost amused disbelief, like a bar regular watching breaking news unfold on a muted TV. Somehow, Joe Rogan's and Patrick Bet-David's very different styles come together to create a strange kind of perfect storm, even without coordination or intent. Patrick comes in with the intensity of a man who's read a 48-page indictment twice, printed it out, and highlighted the details like a forensic analyst. Rogan, on the other hand, leans into cultural commentary, focusing on contradictions and public image. One brings the numbers, the other brings the sarcasm. And together, the situation feels less like a single scandal and more like an entire narrative collapsing under its own contradictions.
See what Whoopi Goldberg said?
What'd she say?
Whoopi Goldberg said that Biden could arrest all the Republicans and put them in jail. You just need to see how unhinged this kind of thinking is. Well, you know what Joe Biden could do? Joe Biden, you have to see it because it's so
on TV,
crazy.
She said
Meanwhile, Patrick Bet-David shows up with spreadsheets in a calm, almost disappointed tone, breaking down the alleged $450 million scheme with surgical precision. His point is simple. You don't accidentally stumble into a setup like this. It takes planning, structure, and a serious level of deception. He walks through the alleged use of shell companies, fake contracts, and messy money trails, treating it like a failed business case study. Then he raises the uncomfortable question of how something this large could go unnoticed for so long, especially with such a public connection. Without ever coordinating, Rogan and Patrick end up forming an unexpected 1-2 punch, Joe focusing on the irony and image, Patrick on the mechanics. One dismantles the perception, the other the structure, and together the story feels like it's collapsing under its own weight.
You're taking Joey Behar, whatever her name is, as like a news source.
Did you have a stroke? No. This is the most important part.
I don't know these people.
Hey, this is the most important part. This is right after she was saying, we are run by ABC News. You should trust us, not Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. So she by saying we should trust them because they're double checked by ABC News, and then making the stupidest fucking statement. Like you didn't listen to what I said.
Yeah.
You didn't listen to what the wildlife biologist, and that's only a part of what he said.
I can't
the
believe
other
Joey
part of what he
Behar
said
didn't
was
wait.
there was something before that where he was explaining encounters with.
And Sonny's response? Silence. No statement, no denial tour, no carefully crafted social media post with emotional music in the background. Just nothing. That silence, in a world built on constant damage control, said more than any statement could. Instead of fixing the narrative, it simply left space for it to spiral. Online, that absence turned into its own kind of verdict. Whether fair or not, the story filled in the gaps on its own. Meanwhile, Rogan and Patrick Bet-David weren't really covering anything. They were just reacting. Joe highlighted the irony, Patrick broke down the mechanics, and together they turned a messy situation into something the internet kept replaying on its own.
Show that people love to hate.
Yes, that's true.
They get so much hate watching and hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things. I mean, it is a rabies infested hen house.
And
the audience is not really their audience. Their audience is a group of people they bring in to watch television shows. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen audiences before for TV shows, but a lot of them are paid. They're paid to be there. So, because they have to guarantee that there's going to be people there. So there's services that you hire. And when a show gets really, really popular, you know, like Letterman or something like that, obviously it has its own fan base.
Right.
Those people will try to get tickets before anybody else does. And in that case, they probably don't need to use a service anymore. They just get actual fans. But arguably, like, the real fans of The View that are like, oh, these ladies are on point, most of those people can't leave the house. Like, they're probably...
Right.
At the end of the day, Joe and Patrick weren't really talking to Sonny. They were talking around her, through the collapse of an image built on credibility and public trust. Her brand, once polished around moral authority, didn't just get chipped away. It unraveled under pressure from commentary that didn't even need her response to land. Joe's audience clipped the moments and called them ironic proof of how quickly reputations flip online. Patrick's followers turned it into a breakdown of power, money, and elite failure, treating it like a case study in real time. One focused on the absurdity, the other on the numbers, and together they turned a developing scandal into a running public commentary that didn't require confrontation, just observation. By the end, it wasn't about statements or defenses anymore. It was just a story the internet kept replaying, with Joe laughing at the irony and Patrick breaking down the mechanics, while the reputation at the center of it struggled to keep up.
In the criminal case, now the prosecutors are like, oh, really? Well, how about we add some additional fraud charges onto you? And they're talking about threatening him with insurance fraud, which I would say you could get about 20 years in prison. So that's a death sentence for him.
It's not that Joe or Patrick have any personal dislike for Sunny. They're not even engaging with her directly. It's more like watching a slow-motion media crash unfold, with them simply observing and commenting as it happens. Instead of stepping in emotionally, they treat it like something to analyze and react to. Joe leans into the irony, while Patrick breaks it down from a numbers and logic angle, each playing a different role without coordinating. Her silence, instead of protecting her image, only adds weight to the story. The less she says, the louder the narrative becomes. And when critics don't even need your words to make their point, the situation has already shifted beyond control, one side highlighting the absurdity, and the other dissecting the structure, both watching the same collapse from different angles.